Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So in this video, it's a very kind of brief video, but I kind of thought it might be interesting for people. I've just come up with this, or actually kind of done this idea that I've been kicking around with for a while, because I'm very slow at actually doing these things, and it's certainly not finished, but I kind of thought it might be interesting. In the past, I have kind of taken a look at blockchain game investment. Actually, I haven't looked at it for a couple of years, really. But when the ICO craze was pretty big, I started kind of collecting data around what was happening with fundraising. And obviously, investment is a very big part of starting companies. When you start a company, you've got an idea and not much money, and hopefully over time you kind of build out your idea, and you need money to do that. So that's kind of the thinking behind this. But I've created this list. You can see here on blockchaingaming.biz, and it's a kind of a list we're going to keep live as more investment comes in. We're going to add to it. It's a static page, so I have to kind of add it. It's nothing clever going on there in terms of kind of live data feeds or anything like that. But anyway, this is the attempt to make a master list of investments in blockchain games. So I'm sure there's loads of deals I've missed. I've not really gone back a lot in time. I've only gone back really over kind of a year and a half. So there's a lot more things to add in there. But if you want to email me with things you want to add, more corrections, you can email me there. So in terms of what I've been looking at, total investments to date in this sector, I've got at least $532 million. I'm sure it's bigger than that. That's what I've got. And that's going back over everything I could find. So that's going back really over kind of 5 years or so. There are some arguments, I suppose, about some of the companies. Are they exactly blockchain games companies? So a good example might be something like Theta Labs, which is a video streaming, video kind of content delivery system, which won't be about games in the future, but it's currently a lot about game streaming. So there is some flexibility in that, just so people know. So if we break down where the money's come from, so traditional VC kind of companies and share placements, that sort of thing, that's much more prevalent now than it used to be back in the days of the ICOs. We can see ICOs raised a lot. So at the moment, the kind of traditional investments is about $170 million. What I've called blockchain investments, ICOs, token sales, those things still happen, obviously. 362 million. One thing I've not included in here is NFT sales. So, I mean, that's not really traditional investment. That's kind of people kind of selling game items. But it could be seen in some ways as investment. People have attempted to sell NFTs to create the funds to kind of allow their companies to go ahead. So maybe that's something I will add in future. But that's it's generally not large sums of money that have been raised through NFTs. So it might be a few tens of millions, but that's not really going to move the bar, but it might be interesting to look into. So as I say, this is a starting point really. So some significant companies in terms of what they've raised. So this is just looking more at the VC side rather than the ICO side. So Mythical Games, Blanco's Block Party developer, 35 million. It's doing a platform really, not just games. Dapper Labs, we all know them. CryptoKitties doing the Flow blockchain, loads of other games for a build like a Ethereum killer. Animoca Brands, we'll come across them quite a lot. So they're out of kind of Hong Kong. And they're doing a lot of investment into blockchain games, and they've also raised at least $18 million, mainly from their shares, and some ICO in there as well. And Immutable Games, which is based in Australia, doing Gods Unchained, they've raised 17 million. So some companies have raised reasonable chunks of cash there. When we look at significant investors, we can't pull out. So generally, when a deal goes through, they'll give the amount that's been raised, and they'll say the lead investor, but they won't say how much the investors have put into the pot. So we can't really get a figure exactly of how much these companies have put in. But Galaxy Digital, particularly, has what is called its EOS VC fund. So it's invested in Immutable Games, Lucid Sight, Mythical Games, amongst others. It's invested in quite a lot. Probably at some point we'll try to have a look at how many deals these companies have done, but that's something for the future. Animoca Brands has also invested not a lot of money, doesn't have that much money, but has been putting kind of, I guess, small amounts of money in lots of deals. So again, Dapper Labs, Lucid Sight, Axie Infinity, which actually should be Sky Mavis. That's the company behind Axie Infinity. You have to correct that. Then also Hashed out of South Korea. They have been one of the kind of emerging kind of crypto kind of companies. So they weren't a VC until kind of blockchain and the ICO craze came in. And they've also, you can see they've invested in Animoca Brands, Axie Infinity, Mythical Games. So a lot of the kind of this kind of slight kind of following each other. Okay. There's also an interesting article here. When will blockchain gaming be worth investing in? That's from a company called LVP, London Venture Partners. They are an early stage investor, so they don't invest a lot of money, but they invest very early in these funds. They've not done any blockchain gaming stuff at the moment, but they just invest in games, and it's kind of interesting to read their thesis on what they're looking for in blockchain. Okay, so getting on to the list, that was all preamble. So we can see here, Animoca Brands has just raised $4.1 million from strategic investors, including these funds here. Now, we've got the total there of 18 million, we mentioned that before. D-Market has raised, in June, raised 6.5 million from a couple of companies and added Trip Hawkins to its board. It's raised 26 million in total now. Most of that was from an ICO. In 2018, Brightstar working on a game called Ember Sword. It's just done its first small raise, so $700,000 from Play Ventures, who are a game early stage investor, and Galaxy Interactive, Galaxy Digital, same thing. Horizon Blockchain Games raised 5 million from Initialized Capital. It's raised 9 million in total. You can kind of see how the flow goes. So we've got CryptoDozer raised, they're out of South Korea, they raised 2.5 million. Blanco's Block Party, Mythical Games, so that was its big raise last year, November, and 19 million from Javelin Venture Partners and some others. So we can kind of see how the flow happens. So as I say, it finishes in July. That's when, as far as the list goes back in terms of this list. And obviously you can click out and read the articles and get a bit more detail about that. But I think this is interesting. And just before we go, I will just kind of give you a sneak peek of how I'm generating this data. Okay, so nothing very clever going on here whatsoever. This is just a Excel or Google spreadsheet where I just put everything down. I wouldn't say I like spreadsheets, but I have a lot of spreadsheets with various numbers in. Most of them kind of fall by the wayside, but they are useful. And this one is basically what I'm generating my data off of. So we can see here, basically what I've done here is I've got a date when the deal was announced. It's not always the same time that the deal happened, but when it was announced at least. Some idea, kind of the company name, where they're based, some view on the money, if it's going in, if it's a seed investment or an extension or a strategic investment or an A round or a B round. I've not filled this in, as you can see. Still a work in progress. Then obviously we've got the money. This is the bit we care about. The money going in. Was it VC, traditional? Was it an ICO or an IEO? And then this is where we get our totals from. So this is where this kind of these numbers are being generated from. As I say, it's a work in progress. There's probably some inaccuracies in there. These things can always get better. It's a question of how much time you want to throw at these things. But obviously, the other thing we're looking at here is looking at the investor. So this column here would be the lead investor, where it's mentioned, and then we can kind of see, get an idea of kind of the flows and what companies are putting in there. So yeah, nothing very exciting, really, but just so you can see, the numbers are not plucked out of thin air. There is some kind of idea of what's going on. And hopefully over time, as we get more deals coming in, bigger deals coming in, that will all feed through. And obviously, I will go back a bit in time and look at some of the other deals that I haven't picked up. But obviously, over time, if you've got small deals of like 2, 3 million, and that's what a lot of these companies are raising in these early stages, that's not going to really impact the figure up here. But there we go. So I hope that was interesting. If you have any kind of comments, please stick them in the comments box, or you can email me, editor@blockchaingamer.biz. If you have anything you think I'm doing wrong, probably am, but there we go. Be encouraging. Thanks for watching the video, and hope to see you again soon.